Hello and welcome to Aliens Revealed Live. I'm your host, Dean Caparella, here on the Paranormal UK radio network. From alien abductions to monster-infested ranches to men in black, to near-death experiences, close encounter experiences and more, we speak to some of the most amazing people on the planet, ready and willing to share their chilling stories with you. And they all come from the Aliens Revealed Live files here on the Paranormal UK radio network. Well, are aliens real? You know what answer you're going to get from this author, but the truth is, many people are struggling with admitting they are real despite the evidence around them. More to the point, evidence that they are being visited but refuse to accept that reality. Teri Lynge-Kehl fought with the "Are aliens real?" question for the first 27 years of her life. Finally, events unfolded that left her in no doubt that they were real, and she's been on a journey of discovery ever since. Lynge-Kehl had been experiencing both extraterrestrial and paranormal events since she was old enough to remember. She's written a book titled Alien Healing about how she was miraculously healed by an ET. In her case, she never really rationalized what was happening to her, and when she did try to tell her parents, she was told in no uncertain manner that those things don't exist. Lynge-Kehl grew up in a strong Christian environment at a young age, and when you're told it's just your imagination, you go with it. What else can you do? Here's a question of the day. Does religion mask the proof of aliens among us? Think about that question and what happened in the early years of Teri Lynge-Kehl's life. Are we so intoxicated with our own spiritual beliefs that we fail to see the trees for the forest? Or in this case, proof of aliens? How many people are experiencing moments in their life that they really can't explain? Lynge-Kehl says when she knew the truth about alien contact, it just confirmed to her she was being guided during her early years. But she also knew there was something wrong with religion, especially the way it's being dished out to people today. Things changed for Lynge-Kehl when she finally started to see the bigger picture. She joins us now. Hi, Teri.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Good to have you here. Let's start firstly with your book, Alien Healing, and you said something in that kind of really resonated with me at the time. You said that anything extraterrestrial or UFO related were merely comic book entertainment for the masses, in your opinion. What changed your opinion?
Well, I had an experience, and being a 100% unbeliever at the time, I had no way to identify that. I really thought for myself it was comic book entertainment. And, you know, you would see all these comic books when I was younger in the stands and things like that. So I thought it was pretend, like Marvel or any other thing, you know, Charlie Brown. You know, those things weren't real. And so the night that I had my experience in 1979 for the first time with extraterrestrials, I was dumbfounded. I could not believe that this was actually a reality, that this was actually real. And so I struggled to wrap my mind around what I was seeing and what I was feeling. I was so fighting that this can't be real, this can't be real. And at the time, having been a very strong Christian and being in the worship team at church and raising my children, being in the teaching through the church, all of these things, you know, were like, came right up to my mind. It's like, how can this be? Nobody at church has ever taught me this. No one has ever told me this. I haven't heard this from school. I haven't heard this in books I'm reading. It was very other than my actual life. So that night, just instantaneously, everything changed. Okay. Everything.
Well, let's take it from the top. How did it all begin?
It began when I was very young, 5 years old. I remember talking to my parents about seeing things, and they poo-pooed me. You know, they were very strong Catholics, and they didn't have the time or the energy to deal with what they thought was Teri's imaginings, you know. And I saw a man standing in the sky. I saw different things in the house, both paranormal and extraterrestrial. And so I would try to talk to my mom or tell my dad, and they could not hear it. They simply didn't believe in these things. And so, I was left to myself to figure it out. And yet nobody talked about it. Not my sisters, no, my brother, no one. So as a child, you try to just go through life going, well, okay, I've told all the adults what's happening and they're not identifying with me in any way, shape, or form. So at this point, I move on. And, when it happens, I'm afraid, I'm scared, and I try to tell them. They don't want to hear it. So now I'm in a place where I don't tell them anymore, which is terrible.
Mm-hmm. So how did you try and rationalize it in a young mind, what you saw?
I can't say that I ever rationalized it. That's the sad part. A child who is not heard or understood or properly introduced to these subjects, which are other than the normal day-to-day, there really isn't any way to rationalize it other than every year it was still happening to me. I was hearing a voice talk to me, telling me things, protecting me, guiding me, giving me in really valuable information and instruction. And I'm like, well, don't the other kids hear it? So when I was 16 and I was in, high school, I asked one of my friends for the very first time, I said, what do you do when that male voice comes to you and talks to you and tells you, what you should be doing? And the girl looked at me and she goes, what are you talking about? And I went, oh yeah, I'm just kidding. And then I thought, oh my God, I really am like this nut. What's going on? And so then I thought, well, gee, is it that really somehow something is wrong with me? And then it just kept happening. And I was seeing demonics. I was seeing angelic. I was seeing extraterrestrial. I was seeing spirits. And I thought, okay, I don't get it. And I'll just keep my mouth shut. But when I was 27 and the craft appeared to me, that was the turning point in my entire life. I then knew I'm not nuts. They just aren't informed. I am hearing. They just aren't hearing. I am seeing and experiencing. They just aren't. Why? I don't know. So the bigger question was, why aren't they all getting it? Why am I getting it? But then the good news came 30 years later when I finally shared the story, because there was no way in God's green earth I was going to share that story about what happened to me when I was 27 years old. And the extraterrestrial ship was parked right up over the railroad tracks. If at that point in my life, I thought if I shared it, I would probably be labeled a real kook. But now within myself, I knew. Because let me tell you something, when your eyes see that craft and you see that tall white extraterrestrial, there are no words. Mm-hmm. There are no words.
Well, can you share that story with us?
Sure. It started one evening coming home late from work. I left work about 2:00 in the morning. I was working a night shift so my husband could work a day shift because we had 2 young boys. And so I left my job at about 2. And it's a good 20-minute drive if you're going really fast. And I was going really fast. And I got to my neighborhood. And as I was coming down 28th Street North in St. Petersburg, Florida, there is a railroad tracks there by a street called Morris Street. And right above the railroad tracks, as I'm getting closer to this thing, I'm seeing something and I'm going, is that a train? And it wasn't a train. And I thought, geez, I can see all the way under it. And there's no, big round, things attached to the railroad. And I thought, that thing's floating. And the next thing I know, my car shut off. And then it rolled up to it and stopped about under 100 and like maybe 70 feet. And the car was like shut off. And I'm thinking, oh crap, you got to be kidding me. And I thought, my God, what is that? So then I was mesmerized by it. And I'm looking out, I was in a Honda Civic, and I'm looking out the window of this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, God, Teri, whatever you do, don't get out of the car. And I no sooner said that out loud, and my hand was reaching for the car door to open the door. And I thought, what are you doing? What are you doing? So I'm having this internal mental battle, and it's like my common sense was telling me don't, but my whole physical being was doing. The next thing I knew, I was holding on to the door jamb of the window of this Honda Civic, and I'm staring at this thing going, oh my God, that thing's gorgeous. And I'm like, how can this be? It's not real. This is comic book entertainment. This is not real, but it was. And so then I'm looking at this blue light going very slowly right through the center of this thing. This most amazing blue white light. It was gorgeous. And in 1979, you didn't have that type of technology to do anything like that. So this was new to me, and I just stood there looking at it. I was mesmerized. I have no idea how long I stood there looking at it, but I thought, wow, that thing is gorgeous. And it was, later I went back and measured it. It was 41 feet long. Now, height, I don't know, but it was pretty tall. I mean, I'm going to say maybe 6 feet tall and 42 feet wide. Now, that's big. Mm-hmm. And I kept looking around everywhere, like, where's somebody else? Where's somebody else? Where's another car? And of course, there was no one on the road. And of course, in 1979 at, 2:30 in the evening, there's not going to be a lot of people on the road in a little city called St. Petersburg, Florida. And it was known as Wrinkle City, the old people's retirement city. And I stood there, and the next thing I knew, staring at this thing, this huge blue light came from the right side, and there was a big open field to the right of where these railroad tracks went near Morris Street. And it's still the very same way today. I go back all the time and stand there to connect. And this big, huge blue light came. I mean, it was massive. It was the size of maybe a semi-trailer. It was huge. And as I turned to look at it, I saw something in the light coming forward, and I thought, oh, no way. God, you've got to be kidding. That can't be real. And as I'm looking at this thing, it has this huge head, very, very thin body, long arms, way too long to be human, way too long. They're hitting the knee area. And I'm like, oh my God. And I thought, holy crap, is that thing ugly? So I closed my eyes and I said, don't look at it, don't look at it, don't look at it. And I was trying to pretend I wasn't seeing what was actually happening. And so then as I was looking down, the most bizarre thing happened. I noticed I'm not standing on the ground. I am not on the roadway. I'm like I'm going to say maybe 2 feet above the road. I've been raised right straight up off the street. And I thought, oh my God. And I wiggled my feet, and sure enough, no roadway under my shoes. Wow. And then I thought, what's going on? And so then I was literally concerned, and I was asking God, please. And I said, what's going on? I said, I don't understand this. I don't know what to think. And I heard the voice say to me, there is so much you do not understand. And I thought, oh my God, there's so much I don't understand. So the next thing I knew, I was going in.
Plays more. Here we go. Go.
Okay, so as I was heading towards this extraterrestrial, which I didn't want to look at, I kept trying to close my eyes, and I kept saying, no, Lord, I don't want to see that. It was so ugly, so uncommon to see such a being, like nothing I had ever seen, of course. And I was frightened, but the being seemed to be calming me somehow, which I thought was very weird. I was feeling anxious, but then as I was moving closer to it, there was a calming coming, but I didn't want anything to do with it. So I kept looking away and looking away. And I was floating. I was not walking. And then I realized there was another craft behind that big, huge blue light that I had not seen in the beginning. And that's impossible because, see, when I first saw the first one hovered over the railroad tracks, I had looked to my right and my left to see if there was anybody else around. It wasn't there then. But then all of a sudden now, boom, it's there. And I'm headed towards it. And so this tall, I say white because the blue-white light was coming right straight through him. I didn't know what he was. I had never seen it before. So in my own mind, I'm making it up. Oh, that's some tall white thing, and very tall. And so as I passed him, I thought, okay, he'll probably stay outside, but where am I going? And then boom, I was like, my mind closed down. It was like I fell asleep. I must have been like right next to him when that touched me, maybe I don't know. I have no memory of that. But the next thing I know is I'm inside another craft, that other craft. And I'm sure I was going to the right, not straight forward to the one hovered. And so as I'm awakened, all of a sudden, I must have been fighting it all. I was laying down in this amazingly clean environment, like an ultra sterile environment. And everything was pure white. Light was coming from the walls, from the ceiling, from the floor, even from what I was on. Everything that was there had light coming through it, which, okay, I had never seen that before. And so now I'm thinking, okay, what happens now? And I remember looking down at my feet and I saw my little sandals on my feet. And I thought, okay, I still have my shoes on. And I thought, but why am I laying down? And it was all very, I was distraught to a degree, mostly confused. And I saw that I still had my work uniform on. And I thought, okay, I'm dressed. I'm okay. And that's kind of what I just kept saying to myself. And then I noticed the tall white was over here, and there were two small grays down by my ankles. One actually was touching me now. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my God, what the heck is that? And again, I was like, this can't be real. And he had his 4 fingers, and that's all that was on that hand was 4 fingers. And they were holding my left ankle. And I thought, oh my God, they think I'm going to run. And then I looked up at this one, and without him using a mouth at all, he said to me, and I heard him in a male voice say, "We will not take you. We will not hurt you." And I thought, take me? Take me where? And I mean, the whole thing was just so bizarre. And so the next thing I know, I was out. And what I had seen with my eyes was all I could remember. And then I was awake again. And now I'm standing in front of my Honda Civic. And I'm facing the craft that's hovered over the railroad tracks. And it's still there. And I'm looking around again. Where is everybody? Not one tree limb was, we had palm trees. Not one limb was moving. Everything was quiet. I couldn't hear the interstate, which was not far. I couldn't hear the cars. I couldn't hear anything. And I thought, what am I, in a bubble? I couldn't hear anything. And, there's always bugs in Florida. You can always hear crickets. You can always hear something. Dogs barking, cat, nothing. And so I thought, it's like I'm in some kind of a special place. I hope I don't lose you again. My internet keeps talking to me. But at any rate, the next thing I knew, I was just standing there looking at the first one that I saw. My car was still off. My door was still open. I'm standing in front of this, and I'm looking at this one, and something so bizarre, Dean, so bizarre happened. I screamed out almost as if begging, "Don't leave me. Please don't leave me here." And I went, what? What did you say? And I thought, why did you say that? Oh my God. And it really was disgusting in a sense to me. It was like, why would you say that? And then the next thing you know, I'm doing it again. I'm saying, please, whatever you do, don't leave me. And I felt like they were going to leave. And I kept begging, just out loud, in the middle of the street. And I thought, why am I saying this? 2 minutes ago, I wouldn't even look at that thing. I'm scared out of my mind. And what is going on? And I was pleading now not to leave me. And I even said out loud, which is bizarre, I said, aren't I good enough? Why are you leaving me? Why would you leave me here again? And I thought, oh, what's going on? This is so sickening. I don't get it. None of it made any sense. And with that extraterrestrial craft was like this. It went boom. It went completely sideways. It did a complete 360, and now it was 100% vertical. And I just went, oh my God, it happened so fast. My eyes didn't register it. Now, how could something that big and that heavy flip that fast? And none of it, again, was making sense, because I kept trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And the next thing I knew, I'm standing there begging like a fool, don't leave me, don't leave me. And sure enough, I feel like I'm talking to this thing and it's talking back to me. And in there, we will not hurt you, we will not take you. So whatever data dump they gave me had completely changed my mind. As a human soul, I was now a different soul than before I went in there. And then it was like this, and it shot up about 500 feet in the air and came to a dead stop. And again, I pleaded, please come back, don't leave me. It was like my words were falling on deaf ears. And then as the craft was like this, a huge ball of fire, actual fire, came out from the belly of it like this and was radiating. And it was the size of the bottom of this craft. And it was just, you could hear the snap and the pop of the fire in this thing. An electrical charge, a very powerful hearing. You could hear it. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to get burned up, but what's going on? And that was concerning. But then I had this amazing peace, and I thought, no, I'm not going to get burned up. And the next thing I know, that fast, gone. They headed towards the Gulf of Mexico, and they went so fast, it was like 1 second they were there, and with the blink of an eye, they were gone. And nowhere in sight, they went that fast. So I stood there in the road, just shocked and going, what just happened? How could that have just happened? And I thought to myself, oh my God, I need to talk to somebody. I've got to talk to somebody that knows me, that loves me, that can trust what I'm telling them. What do I do? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? And then I thought, I'll go to my mom's. Now, I happen to live right off of 28th Street North, and I was more south than my mother, who lived off of 28th Street North, about a minute north of me. So I got in my little car, it started right back up, and I headed right over to my mother's. And so I got to the door at my mom's, and I'm banging on the door. It's the middle of the night. It's like, I'm thinking it's like 2:45, and I'm banging on the door, and my stepfather came to the door and said, Teri, what are you doing here at this hour of the morning? I said, morning, it's the middle of the night. I said, well, he's so tired, he doesn't know what time it is. And so I heard my mom come around the corner, and she goes, Marty, who is it? And he goes, it's Teri. And she says, well, let her in. And so I go in, and I said, I ran up to my mom. I said, Mom, please put a pot of coffee on. I got to talk to you. I said, I can't believe what just happened to me. I just have to tell somebody. And she said, okay, but I got to get ready for work in a little bit. And I'm like, what? You're going to work at 2 a.m? I'm still thinking it's like 2:30, 2:45. And my mom goes, Teri, it's 4 something. I think she said it was like 4:17 in the morning. I'm like, what? How? And I thought, oh, no, they don't understand. It's not 4:17. They think it is. And I'm like, what? How could that be? I had never heard the term missing time. I didn't know it existed. And all I could think of was, what's wrong with everybody in this freaking world? Nobody makes any sense. And I just thought it was them, And so.
But it got stranger.
It kept getting stranger. Every year it got stranger and stranger. And then as I sat there telling my mother, everything I told you plus more, because at the time I was like motor mouth. I couldn't stop talking to her. I was just high in the moment of that experience. And she listened very quietly as she did brew the coffee and pour a cup and came over and sat down next to me again. And she put her hand on my knee and said, it's okay, Teri. I've seen them too.
Wow.
And I'm like 27 years old and I got angry. I screamed at her, what? I'm 27 years old and you have never told me this before? You've never made me privy to this? And all my life I've been talking to you about things and you're ignoring me like I'm some kind of a fruitcake? And, I'm yelling at her. And she just said, she said, it's best that you don't talk about these things. And I was on a layover from a job I was working with Honeywell Aerospace. I was working in the secretarial realm, and my mother was in management at Honeywell Aerospace, and my sister worked at Honeywell Aerospace in a different plant 5, and I worked in plant 4. And so they had laid us off because we were working on the Minuteman project and they were getting ready to work on the Gemini project. And so my mother said to me, if you ever want to be hired again, you keep your mouth shut. You don't talk to anybody. You say nothing because they're going to think you're crazy. And even though I have seen them too, she said, you don't want to talk about this. And I said, okay, all right. And so I didn't, I really was like this ultra good kid as a kid. And if I'd do something, I did it. I didn't question her. I did what I was told. Never got in trouble, was, never a problem. And so I didn't talk about it. And of course, many things kept happening over the years. And I would go back to that site often and just sit there late at night and just think, what the heck, what's going on here? And, that was that particular segment, but then I had other experiences along the way. But that was my first extraterrestrial awareness time where I now knew this is real, regardless of what anybody says. And I did tell my pastor, and he poo-pooed me. And then I knew something was wrong with religion. Because I was starting to see a much bigger picture going, wait, you're supposed to listen to things that concern me or upset me, and you're not listening. So something's wrong with this whole religious thing. And so then I started backing away and seeing things much bigger than what I ever thought I could. So then I was on a completely different path, but still trying to make sense of it all. And it took many years.
Yeah. Well, I picked up on two things. When you were having that first experience, you were saying that you didn't want them to leave you there. So two things. Did you think you had some kind of connection with them? And secondly, what was the dump that you talked about? Did they download information to you?
Well, before that night, I knew nothing, zero about extraterrestrials. And so after that night, I was a firm believer. I knew what I knew. When people said they don't exist, I said, oh, but they do. And when people would say, well, they don't look like this, I would say, oh, but they do. And they're here, and they're cloaked, and they can be here. I had so much information just coming out of me. I wasn't even sure where it was coming from. Then I like I told you, I never did anything for all those years until one night. And then, of course, they came again and led me to MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and literally led me to them. I wasn't looking for MUFON. I didn't even know it existed. And so, I have been led by these extraterrestrials my entire life, by the spiritual realm. I've had a lot of different things, but back to your question. So I knew I had been given information, but I didn't know how. This thing had no mouth, no nose, no ears, nothing like a human man, but it was yet kind, non-threatening way. And it did give me some form of a data dump, but I didn't know to what degree that data dump was. And I still, to this day, get a little bit of understanding from that first interaction. Mm-hmm. Did I lose you, Dean?
No, I'm back. Well, we're back again, but I just wanted to ask, being led to MUFON by the extraterrestrials, do you think that kind of would be defeating their purpose if they were looking at staying, unseen and not being discovered?
So the reason I was led to MUFON, I believe, and I did state that earlier, is that they're not trying to not be known. They're just not getting involved. They want to be known. They want people to understand who they are and where they're coming from and what they're doing. And yet they're not involved enough in our personal lives to try to control us or manipulate us or tell us what to do. That's not their concern. So I'm very much believing that they're wanting us to understand them. They're not trying to do anything for us specifically. They're giving us technology. A lot of different things are happening, but it isn't that they need to control us. They're so far above us. It's such a higher thing. It's such a higher calling than what we look at it as.
Mm-hmm. In your book, Alien Healing, you talk about being healed by the extraterrestrials. I'm just hoping our connection doesn't fall off, but people can obviously, go and buy your book. It's on Kindle. It's called Alien Healing by Teri Lynge-Kehl. But just briefly, give us a little bit of background on the book.
Well, I had in 2012, I had an extraterrestrial come and literally heal me from something that I had a surgery I had in 2000, which was life-changing, very, very serious. Had I not had it, I would have died. And the doctors told me that I had Crohn's colitis, and it's very rare to get both. You either get one or the other, and I had both. And my insides had to be taken out. The large intestine had to come out immediately, or they felt it was going to be cancerous, and then I would not stand a chance of recovery. So I did have that surgery, and after the surgery, something was wrong. It was an 8.5-hour surgery, and I didn't heal quite right. And 6 weeks after the healing, and within that time frame, within the 6 weeks, I was in a lot of pain that was more than the normal. And they brought me back in and used a sonogram on me to see what was going on, and I had a bleed that I remember the doctor saying, well, there it is. And we were all looking at the monitor, and I could see a hairline bleed. And with each, pump of my heart, I could see that bleed going out. So it was a continual, like the shoosh, shoosh, swoosh of this blood going. But he said, but I don't really see where it's coming from. And he kept pushing and trying with the sonogram to see it. So they said, we're going to have to go back in. We're going to have to go back in. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm healing up. And, healing from a 8.5-hour surgery where they open up, from stem to stern, and they got to cut that open again is, that's nothing to look forward to. And so I had to go back in, and they thought that they had gotten it, and the pain was off the charts when I came to, but I forever had in my right side after the second surgery a very dull ache that would not go away. And I kept telling the doctors about it, and they were like, well, do you want to go in for a third surgery? And I'm like, no. And they said, well, look, you're going to have to learn to live with that. That's your new normal. And I thought, oh, no, that can't be. So anyway, it was 12 years later after living with that as my new normal. I'm in bed one night, and an extraterrestrial comes in the room. I hear my name called. I always hear my name called, and just Teri. And I rolled over to look at who was calling me, because I'm like, what? I never knew if it was going to be a spirit, an angel, some form of a demonic presence, or an extraterrestrial. And I'm like, okay, who is this? And when I turned over, there was a reptilian type of a extraterrestrial who had a very uniqueness to him. I'd never seen anything like this before. He had these little scales that had teeny weeny little hairs on the end of them, and they were all over his entire body, on his hands, and his hands were the one hand was just kind of like folded up like this, and I could see all these little intricate hairs on the ends of all these little, like almost like a scale, but it wasn't a scale really. It's hard to define him, and yet he had these big eyes, very compassionate, very kind voice, and he only said one thing to me after he called my name, and that was, be still. And I thought, huh? I didn't even know why I was there. And again, I'm trying to wrap my mind around seeing something that no one has ever described, no one has ever told me about, a short reptilian. But you could tell that it was really, in the structure of his face, he wasn't any other type. He really was reptilian looking. And I thought, well, and then it was like I went into like a freeze frame. And then he had this tool which had 2 prongs on the end of it, and then one thing in the center, like kind of like like that. And yet they were alive. They were biological in some sort. They weren't like what you would see MD using, like I had used on me, steel instruments and things like this that hold you open, clamps and steel things. Bard Parkers, for God's sake. This thing was alive. And it had on one of the little tips, it was very, very much like an octopus's tentacle, but thin. And you could see these little things on there like a suction cup that went every so far. You would have like a suction cup and then another suction cup. And the one on the end had like a little bit of a kind of like a hat like looking to it, but it was definitely a suction cup. And they used that just to hold this thing in place. The other one was wrapped real tight like you would see in nature. And I tried to depict that in what I drew, but it's, that's not exactly what it looked like, but it's as close as my rendition could be. And that was inserted vaginally, and believe it or not, there was no pain at all. It just went right in and wrapped itself real tight around that place in my lower right abdomen. And it kind of put like a pressure squeeze on it, but it didn't hurt. And then after just a little bit, I was thinking to myself, what in God's name is this? What's going on? And it was gone, and he was gone. And I had my eyes real squinted like this, thinking, oh my God, is this going to hurt? And when I opened my eyes, he was gone. Everything was gone. And I immediately got up and I thought to myself, oh my God. Then I went back and laid down and I thought, what do I do? Do I wake up my husband? Do I tell my husband this just happened? And I thought, oh, geez, here we go. And I thought, no, he's probably just going to think this is another bizarre thing. I'm just going to keep this to myself. He wasn't a real believer in any of these things, not extraterrestrial, not spiritual, not demonic, nothing. So, how I ended up with him, I look back and I'm not sure, but, we didn't have anything in common at all. And so, I didn't say anything, but to make a long story short, I was 100% healed that day. And I called two friends, Kathleen Martin and Denise Stoner, who are both with MUFON and were with me with MUFON. And I said, what do you guys think I should do? I'm having these really strange sensations. Something is really bizarre here. And they said, well, get a swab. And I did. I got a swab and I swabbed everything real good and put it in a plastic bag, threw it in the freezer. And I just recently am getting results back from that swab. Okay. And they're very peculiar results. I can't say anything else than that.
We can look forward to alien healing too.
Yeah.
Teri, the book is available on Amazon. Alien Healing, it's called, by Teri Lynge-Kehl. And do yourself a favor, go out and it's only a couple of bucks, isn't it, on Kindle?
$2.99. Yeah.
$2.99. Teri, we've almost run out of time quickly. So your mission in life has been, well, I guess you use the word expose the alien mystery, but probably in quotes. But the voice you heard as a child from the time you were a child to your first encounter, was it the same voice?
It always has been. And I'm glad you asked that question, because I don't think that was just an alien voice. I think that there is a God who is not involved in religion, by the way. He's so much greater than that. But he's in charge of all of this, and he has created them. They're very much aware of him, and they know. And this is such a higher, it's so much higher than what most people are able to grasp. And if they continue to seek, they're going to find all the answers that they want, just like I'm finding my answers. But that voice was the voice of God through my childhood. And believe me, if I had time to share all the different things that I was prevented from, including death on several occasions, you would know that this voice was a very positive influence in my life and with the extraterrestrials. So, I know people struggle with this, but I would beg people to have an open mind and keep asking questions, because the truth is really here for us to get a hold of if we're able to stay on course with it.
It might be the old story of Jack Nicholson's quote in the movie, you can't handle the truth. And I guess a lot of people, probably not so much they can't handle it, they don't want to know about the truth. And
well, I think people get stuck in their religious belief systems, and people get stuck in their negativities or their, their grand illusions of this, that, or the other thing. But this is the truth. These dimensions are with us. We are not alone here. We never have been. And that alone should be the big ticket item. We should know we've never been alone. So that should give people a clue to look in this direction. And we all know religions don't work because we know they're human initiated, most of them. But that doesn't take away from the truth that God is real. He is. But he doesn't have anything to do with all this nonsense. The extraterrestrials don't have anything to do with all this nonsense. It's man who muddies the waters.
Mm-hmm. Teri, been a pleasure speaking with you today. I need to get you back on again at some stage. I'd like to hear more about your connection with your mom and then your mom's connection with the extraterrestrials, because it seems to be a common theme among experiences. But thanks very much, and it's been a fascinating chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
That's Teri Lynge-Kehl. Terry Lovelace has been a lifelong experiencer and made headlines during the famous abduction event of the 1970s, the incident at Devil's Den. 3 years ago, during another abduction event, Lovelace may have got some revenge on his abductors in the form of a hard-to-argue-with evidence.
Yeah. April 16th of 2019, I woke up at 5:55 a.m. and I was out of breath and my pulse was racing. I didn't have chest pain, but I have ischemic heart disease. I've had a heart attack. So I assumed that it must have been some kind of cardiac event. And I asked my wife, "You call an ambulance for me." And I felt just starved for oxygen. And she did. She called an ambulance. They got there right away, took me to the hospital. My blood pressure was like 220 over 110. My pulse was like 175. It was just crazy. And I just felt bad. By the time I got to the hospital, my pulse rate had dropped and my blood pressure had rebounded back to normal, like 120 over 80. And I actually felt okay. So I should explain. Back in the 80s, I got into the habit of sleeping with a Walkman. Mm-hmm. And I used to listen to cassette tapes on meditation and just sometimes just orchestral music because I don't like, ambient noises in the house at night. They just upset me. Mm-hmm. So I used headphones back then. Now I use my iPhone with earbuds. I sleep with a T-shirt with a pocket where I can keep my iPhone. And I listen to a meditative tape or meditative app. I do it every night. So this night, just like any other, that's how I went to sleep. And when I woke up at 5:55 a.m., my earbuds were on my chest. My iPhone, I keep plugged into the wall on a long cord because the battery's not so good. But from years of doing this, I don't move around a lot or it works fine for me. Mm-hmm. And it was unplugged from the wall. I didn't notice this until afterward. So I got to the hospital. They did, I know the drill. It's an EKG, cardiac enzymes, and a chest X-ray. All of those came back negative. The doctor said, "I don't know what you had. You may have suffered from an arrhythmia of some kind. But your rate is normal now, and I could keep you for observation overnight, or I could cut you loose. It's up to you." And this is 3:00 in the afternoon. I'd been there 7 hours. I said, 8 hours. I said, "Yeah, just cut me loose. I'd rather go home." So he did. And I just chalked it up to an odd medical event. And that evening, about 7:30, I went for my usual after-dinner walk. And I try to clock pretty religiously 1.5 miles a day every day. And I pulled my health, I went outside, hit the sidewalk, pulled my health app out, and I saw I'd walked like 270 steps or something that day because I'd been in the hospital all day. Mm-hmm. So then I looked down and I saw stairs climbed 6 flights. And I don't have any stairs in my house. I went to the hospital by ambulance. I never climbed a single step. I didn't understand that. And then I looked at the time. The time reads 5:24 a.m. That's 31 minutes before I woke up. I was in bed with my wife at 5:24 a.m., sound asleep, or so I thought. So I looked at that, and my first thought was, well, it has to be an error.
That's contact experiencer Teri Lovelace. When you hear his description of what happened during this experience, you will be stunned. It's coming up on the next episode of the Aliens Revealed Live Files. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for being with us. Don't forget to check out our site at arlhub.com. That's arlhub.com. And as always, keep looking upwards and take care.